Good evening, how you going? So here we are, the last day of January 2022, and we got another one of those seasonal bounces that lasted for 2 days, the window dressing that we were talking about and expecting. You're never sure 100%, but this is basically a replication of what happened in December. The cynical amongst us, and you could pretty much assume Madavi and I are pretty cynical buggers. It's all about bonuses and about having your 401k not looking as bad as what it was. So just quickly before we go through the charts, for the month of January, both the S&P and Nasdaq had their worst month since March 2020. Significantly though, they were actually on tune up until Thursday, Madabi, to have their worst month ever in the history of the stock market. So it gives you an idea how much that bounce was. In fact, Nasdaq despite this bounce, still had its worst January since 2008. We all know what happened in 2008, right? And on the flip side of that, both the SPOOs and the NAS had their best 2-day gain since November 2020. So lots of volatility on the month. Tesla fell 11% to January. So that means it must have been off about 20%, mate, because it's bounced, 10% off the lows. Amazon fell 10% for the month. And at the low, so if we just look at how much we've come back, the Dow at its low was down 8%, nearly 9% for the month. The S&P was down as much as 11%, and it's going to finish up -5%. The Dow -3%. Nasdaq was down 16%, and the Nasdaq finished up down about 9%. The Russell finished up 9.8% for the month. It was down 15.34% at the month's low. But significantly, that one was down about 21% for an all-time high. And as we said the other day, the bounce there the other day, on Friday, was basically, give or take a few handles, was the 38% retracement. So lots of good maths there. So without further ado, let's get into what actually happened today. So pretty well straightforward across the market. Now, the big one, of course, was natural gas, with the US freezing its butt off, as is the rest of the world, and there's not enough supply. We all know why. Let's not go into that. But that actually got over 5 this morning in the pre-market on the Henry Hub. Oil, I want to say it was another 7-year high settle. Got to 88.40. Close over $88. The SPOOs closed right around 4,500, which was our big open interest target. Our outer target, actually. So that's how crazy this move was. And you can see the other charts there. So let's go through the SPOOs first, shall we? So if we look at what the SPOOs did on a daily basis, so we can see that, let's go backwards actually. Let's start with the weekly. On the weekly basis, look where it closed. And this is where we got 4,500. We didn't just pull this out of our proverbial. It was the biggest open interest in that zone. It was where where the Cajun and the Tenkan were. And remember, we've been watching the KOD. And it never happened. So that stopped us putting a big short on again up there. So we've closed dead flat. Look at this spit. Pretty cut and dried, right? Daily. Look where it is on the daily Cajun. Cajun's pink. Tenkan's orange. And again, nice bounce into that slot almost perfectly. Kind of scary how this tells you how much mathematics run the market, but it also tells you how powerful algorithms are. Some people say it's as much as 80 to 85% runs this market. So when you see this, and remember, everything we do at NovaWave is mathematically based as far as the numbers on the grid. Then we use the order flow through the day, and we do our best to manage the herd. So you can't just look at charts. You can't just look at order flow. I mean, you can, but you're going to be trading you non-stop, right? So you got to mix them all together. So that's the important key to trading. I don't know how many people I saw, Madavi, how many did we see just absolutely, all you can do is buy the top, buy the dip. Then when they should have been buying it, when they're all set up, they're not buying it. And in fact, there's a lot of these, the punter and dribbler fib twits, recommending to their people not to do it, not even scaling in or with optionality or anything. So it's really interesting what goes out there. Now, that's important to gather, not hanging on them, everyone's human, but from our point of view, we look at that to see what the herd's doing, which helps us work out the crowd psychology of the market, which is what we really just use Elliott Wave for. We don't over-analyse that, as you know. So moving along, let's go to the 240. And pretty well all we did, remember, was we were going to go right till the close of today to get out of our SPOOs and our Apple. They were our two positions, if you remember. Apple, unfortunately, came back and got us out with about another $1.20 to go, Madavi, which I was a little bit animated, but SPOOs managed to stay in for the most part. So basically, if you recall, on Apple, we bought the cash when it was down almost at the lows. We got out when it had like an $8 bounce, I think. Then we converted that, because vol was coming down, we converted that into upside calls. Our strikes were 170 and 172.50. So, and that's where it come back down to. Obviously, Johnny Hindsight held them to the end, but but we didn't. So you can never. So you got to remember it. And I did a tweet actually that it hit the level. We did tweet through Nova through Trades Community actually, that had hit that minimum target at 4,500. So we got out of our optionality there, and then the SPOOs right to the end. So it doesn't always work that closely, but this was a mirror image of December. Now recall what happened in the start of January. First day was it the first day that it did that Apple thing, the triple? But it went up for one day, maybe 1.5, and then it crapped after that. So we're going to keep it big eye on optionality tomorrow and order flow. So, in other words, is this going to be a replication of the last day of December? Right? That's a good chance. Or is it going to be something different? So let's keep our eyes open for that. Okay, let's bring on Madavi, as you know, trades and Nasdaq. So let's talk about the Nas.
Oh man, the Nasdaq was strongest thing on the day. I mean, man, all you gotta do is buy it and hold it, and I couldn't even do that.
Well, that's what's good with the boring SPOOs. It didn't go up as much, but it did. But up until right at the end, when well, I guess because Apple's in Nasdaq, that's probably why it got me out, right? Because Nasdaq pulled back that one time too, didn't it?
You know, I mean, I had some good trades all up. Then the Russell and them were all weak, so I went short heavy in them. Market takes off, and I rode the NQs for a while, and then
that was around here, I think, right?
We got off thinking the market was going to churn, never churned, and just kept on getting stopped out, lost, and gone.
Yeah, it was a little bit. So what I noticed today, and we were talking about it, was when these sells happen, it was often because Reuters or CNBC was regurgitating old news, which triggered the bloody algorithms, right? And you'd get these sells. So as skeptical as I always am, I think that's also enabling a market makers, etc., to get into it. So you can see what happened. I think it was this. Well, there was this one, but you can see what's important look at this. This is the Nasdaq. It has these really good double bottoms and false breaks. And then eventually you can see the series of 1, 2, 3. So remember, all we really look for on Elliott is ABCs or 1, 2, 3s and the different ways. 5's up, 3's correct. And you keep it that simple. Then you want confluence into your Ichimoku and your Murray. And you'll get the feel of the market. You're not going to get the feel, though, if you trade every little Tom, Dick and Harry stock out there, right? So you got to... I mean, we keep it... I mean, since this crash from January, between us, mate, we've probably just traded, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Nasdaq, S&P, Russell Futures, oil, natural gas, Apple, and probably 15 story stocks. It's about it, right?
Yeah, mostly Microsoft, throwing Microsoft, Facebook.
Oh, yeah, soft. Yeah. But out of the main one, I mean, like, so we would do Tesla on earnings, basically, but not every day.
I trade a lot of...
Oh, yeah, we did a lot. So a lot of our big shorts, which you know most of them, everyone, things that we think potentially go to zero, or they'll do a secondary or something. A lot of those we took profit on over the last few weeks, partial, or actually rolled puts against most of them, actually, mate. Oh, sorry, sold puts, not rolled.
Here's a good story about secondaries and just...
that's a good one.
IMPP, they did an issuance like 3 days ago, so it was supposed to be out of the way. On Friday, it did incredible volume and everything, and it was going pretty good, you know. And so all of a sudden,
INMPD, right?
IMPP.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
IMPP. Mate noticed it was getting weaker. I noticed it, but I was like, I didn't want to give into it. Not ever expecting that they were gonna do another issuance.
Well, I just had that same feel. I can't remember the name of it, but do you remember last year? Was it December? Everything's a blur, isn't it? But there was this drugs, like a biotech. It just had that same feel, that opened at 16 and finished. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I had a gut feeling it was doing that. I just didn't want to believe it, because I was kind of deep. And so as soon as I saw that, so I woke up this morning, 1 o'clock, and I was searching away. I was reading something. Yeah, then I went and looked at their filings. Sure enough, they were doing another one. So I just hit it all the shorts I could get, and broke even at least.
Yeah, that was this one here. This is where it felt heavy. So it went up on news. We followed this. We bought this pullback in here, and then it just started to break down. And it was like someone had their foot on it, right?
So this stock usually does 500,000 shares a day. What did it do? 100 million shares on Friday. This was a $5 stock.
Yeah, so when it's so if it's not performing with that kind of volume with that, you kind of know something's going on. And they don't have to disclose. Well, you don't always know it. You just have a gut feeling, but they don't have to disclose it for a couple of days, right, or whatever the law is. So.
But you got to see. Usually, when they take the money, the guys who are paying for it want the filings and shit. Signing contracts, then they have to file it.
Right.
That's what I saw in the SEC filings. So, and I was like, oh man, and they blamed it on inflation and more cash for oil, and they're a shipper. They're supposed to be an oil shipper.
Yeah, I couldn't. It was a Greece company. That's right. And I try to remember what it was. And they had their name. It was almost identical to Exxon's affiliate up in Canada, like Imperial. So I mean, that's what got us interested originally. Oh, okay. With oil and gas flying up. But then this sort of thing we noticed. But there's a good example of, hey, tell me it ain't so. And so Madavi turned around and smacked it. I was busy with oil and gas this morning, but so you had this secondary here on the chart, and then this one down here. And look, it's kind of dead man walking down here. It looks like it closed about $1.
I got out of like 30%. I'm looking to get out of the rest of it. I want to see. I guess I even got hit at like 96, 97.
Because it's a new company, right? So it's loss making.
It's fairly new company, you know. They just went hog wild. They just, you know, you gotta remember, you know, I've been on both sides of this thing. I mean, I used to be consultant with these publicly traded companies, so I know kind of how they operate from the inside and outside. And these guys are just rookies, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what's happened is now, and what you're saying, they would finesse it. Now they just want out. And I guess because the market was being dumped so hard, they were worried they weren't going to get paid, right?
They were going to get a downtick, and nobody was going to fill it. So they could have taken this thing $5-6 into the secondary compared to the way they did it. You know, gave it a couple of days of run up, like these rest of these stocks. And, you know, right now the perfect time. Perfect 2 days of markets up. I mean, there's a lot of interest in these. It's a cheap stock. I mean, all these, what do you call it, fan clubs, Robin Hooders, you know, would be all over it. I mean,
well, I think so many of them have been blowing up, right? You think of the people, some of the people we know that are that kind of traded at all those high flyer crap, and
it's at 100 million shares, so there's plenty of people still there because not as many stocks.
Oh, right.
So the volume is always going to be there for these. You know, it just gets, whenever the markets crash down, there's not 20 of them a day running like it used to be. Now there's going to be 1 or 2, you know, or a couple a week, you know. So it just gets slowed down a little bit. But there's always going to be money for these things. And because there's tons of money could be made. Somebody could put 10 grand in and walk away with 100.
Right. Yeah, that can be where it's kind of the luck with some of these if these trading rooms get hold of them, and things like that. So be aware of that, people. If just little things like that. That's why you talk about order flow. Order flow is 2 things. It's seeing the volume, but it's also seeing if there's an axe, like a relentless bid or offer, whether they're hitting the bid, whether they're lifting the offer, and things like that. Now, if you're from the commodity game, you know a lot of that stuff as well, from spreads, and particularly the seasonals like energies, oil, gas, the ags, you know.
The whole experience is, you know, I could have put that money I used in there into Robinhood, which is that's a cheaper stock, but still it costs about the same. Actually, Robinhood would probably be cheaper for me to get into.
Oh, the stock Robinhood. Yeah. That was a great call, by the way, mate, you did on that. So I reckon you and Kathy are on the same phone call, I think, to buy that one, huh?
Yeah, I called her up. I gave her stock tips all the time. You know? Where do you think she gets those picks from?
Mate, I wouldn't be saying that too loudly, huh? Well, let's have a look at it. Well, firstly, let's look at... I got SMH up because tonight we had another 2 semis out, NXPI and Cirrus. So SMI, it actually filled this gap today. See that gap? That it come down and filled. So we managed to do a double bottom. You know what the continuation is there, pretty straightforward. We got AMD out this week. Someone else in the semis. So let's look at, that's pretty good. There's your NVIDIA we watched that's off that 52 weekly. Where is ARC-G or ARC-K? Which ARC do you want to look at?
You're going to go S-ARC. So if you buy ARC-G or whatever, buy S-ARC too.
Yeah, S-ARC's the reverse, right? So that got totally smashed today because Kathy was up pretty big today.
I think I beat down like a redheaded stepchild.
Exactly, actually. I don't even say that anymore, though, you know.
Why?
Because redheaded people get offended.
Oh, is it because they're Indians? Or is it just because they're redheaded?
Because they're red-headed, I guess. I got Irish in me, so I got red-headed relatives. In fact, I got a red-headed son. But anyway, we digress. So if we look at this, this is the Russell. The Russell was 38% of this move. It was a couple of handles difference. But it held the bottom of the channel, so it was actually a pretty good buy. But what's interesting, vol was so expensive, and I bought out of the money on here. I actually lost on these. I obviously should have had a longer time frame. I'm basically the same type of thing I had for Apple. So that's an important thing when you're trading. It can be difficult. Sometimes it's basically better to sell puts in that situation where that's high risk, but simply trade the option or trade the future of the stock. And that's that. You can see on the daily, we managed to get above the Tankin. So that's just support. So basically you can see that's 2,000. So we're going to watch what it does 2,000. Look at your open interest. Okay, let's look at energy real quick. So this is the beast that roared. They call Natty. This is real clinical, as we said on the way down. I think we've all been doing pretty good on this one. The weather, look what it did overall. It spat that Cajun on the weekly, got over 5. So remember, this is either a 3 or a 5. 5 means this is the high. 3 means we're going higher. Just keep it simple, right? If it's going higher, your targets are going to be that, and your Murray's up here, right? And we came up, I think the 1.618. It's in the weekly report anyway. Up here on the downside, this whole thing is correcting this. This would be A. This would be B. 3, right? Daily, you can see it even clearer there. Exactly the same pattern. A, B, C, right? The bear. Oil, we all know what's going on there. What's interesting is it's not really coming off. So when you use Murray, it's particularly Nova Waves, a little bit different but you're looking for impulse and rejection of plus and 2/8 or minus 2/8, right? So if it's not coming down off plus 2/8, you got to tighten that up and look towards if it's building a panic to accelerate higher. So meanwhile, it still hasn't broken up from that though, right? So where's our daily on that? And so daily you can see that pennant forming, right? So all around. So keep that in mind. Remember, a lot of the yellow oil and energy bulls, they laughed at it down here. You got to own oil, So keep that in mind, right? Watch the herd, what's going on there. What do we want to have a quick look at crypto? See what they did. I know Johnny Meta's over in the metaverse today, but we have had a bounce back from that low at 32.80 up to 38.5. So we're bounced 6,000, and the breakdown was at 39.9. I'm looking at it real short so you can show you. That's what it would have to recover. So this just looks like a big, big, big wedge, right? On Bitcoin, you can see that 1, 2, 3. So this, if the bull, this would be a C wave. Bear, this is 1, 2, 3 would be A, right? We go back up, or of course this can be a total top 5 of 5, right? And so it's going down here. Ethereum's probably the same. Yeah, Ethereum's a little bit stronger. See that, Madavi?
Yeah.
So that's actually to the top of the cloud there. So that's a big spread difference. It is month end, so let's have a quick look at the commodities. Soybeans rallied into the close, which is also a good measure of inflation. Corn actually fell hard at the close. This has been trading, a lot of these grains, like wheat in particular, has been trading of what's been going on in the Ukraine. So all we hear about is oil and gas with the Ukraine, but it used to be known as the food bowl of that region, particularly when it was Soviet Union, but of Ukraine, and before Ukraine was part of Lithuania and Poland, all these countries, but it was known before we were ravaging the earth for oil and gas. It was famous as food bowl, really good fertile land. And if you do trade wheat, you'll recall when they had the big droughts over there in Russia and Ukraine a few years back. So that affects grain, and that what's the word I'm looking for, mate? The tensions when they're on and off, you can see that also in some of these grains, not just in oil or gas.
What's been a grain during the winter month?
Yeah, so, but it'd be mainly, yeah, so we're not getting drought over there now, but I mean, back a few years ago you did. You had big drought there at the same time you had it in Canada and the States.
They didn't grow it in the winter or something?
There's winter wheat, yeah. I don't know. I've actually never traded wheat, so I'm pretty blunt. What I know about grains is more from what I know about cattle, like it's feedstock. But I do know that it is Ukraine's one of the biggest in the world for it. So
grow it 6 months out of the year, it sounds like.
Yeah, I can't. I can only imagine it. I don't know how it can grow in snow.
I mean, they can't grow like.
But I think it's more if there's a war going on, because remember it's all in storage. Then they can't get it out. It's more that, right? It's more in silos and storage. Okay, let's look at the gold. Gold, as we said, and this is what all you've got to really, in my opinion, on gold. We're just watching this big triangle. Remember, it couldn't get over it. So you watch the downside, and something's got to happen at some point. We're getting into this apex. So over the month, it was up like $10 today, right? It bounced pretty nicely. Silver, similar, but look how messy silver is. It's actually got a flat bottom triangle rather than a pennant. So if it breaks all this, then silver's all the way back down here. Copper, still in that pennant. That's pretty well our commodity. I think we've done everything, right? So one thing we wanted to look at was, as far as bonds go, I didn't look at all the Robinhood stocks today, actually, but we just saw in the chart that they were all up. As far as Europe goes for month end, everywhere was up today except for England. There was a report out to do with COVID, I believe, is the reason. And also, old Boris is looking more beheveled every day, isn't he? As far as bonds go, the 10-year finished unchanged today. The shorter tenors finished with modest gains. Remember, there was a spook in the market by Bostic over the weekend. Said, I can handle a 50 basis point rise. Remember, he's one of the hawkish of the lot, and he doesn't get to vote till 24. That was, I'm trying to think of their names, but there was two feds out today saying that's not part of their policy. Sorry, mate?
So he's one of those circle jerkers. He just got a voice.
Yeah, got a voice and hoping to influence, right? And
no, not in the game.
No, exactly, mate. So, and so over in, don't forget, we have Lunar Week this week. So the lunar calendar. So China is off all week. I think they do come back on Friday. South Korea is off till Wednesday. And given China's off, I will have to look, so check your calendars. But Hong Kong is more than likely off with them, and Singapore. So you got major markets over there. So that affects liquidity. That affects news. We did see that Evergrande on yesterday, Sunday, did get, it's not subpoenaed, I'm trying to think what the word is, but they are having to auction off some of their property that they're putting as part of their settlement. That's really about it. One thing we wanted to talk about was how the market has affected IPOs, right? So there's only been, sorry about that, there's only been a handful of IPOs, like I want to say two IPOs this year, definitely in the last 2 weeks. And what I found interesting, the smaller ones are still pursuing it, but they're issuing warrants. So they're smaller, meaning 10 million, I guess, rather than 100 million. But so that's a thing that's going on. It just showed you how quickly it can change, right? So it wasn't long ago, though, we were talking about these massive IPOs, was it? Just a couple of months. SPACs and all these SPACs have obviously crapped themselves. For one, that's a technical term. So that's another thing that's interesting. We'll follow that up a little bit more. As far as other things that are of note, the BDI still had a negative week, but it did go up on Friday, and that was mainly because of the capsize index, because iron ore futures had a big couple of days last week. So you're seeing a lot of... So you've got this energy crisis. The coal is going up, iron ore... So you're getting this constant volatility in all these markets. It's not just oil and gas. So the commodity countries, it's fantastic for them, right? Like Texas should be good for Canada, but they've obviously got some issues going on up there. Australia, some of the South American countries. So there's this two-horse mix. And remember, when oil's going up, it actually helps the poorer countries. So the interesting thing, too, with Russia is that Russia is one of the biggest oil and gas people in the world. Nickel's another one. So the higher oil helps them, right? So when we get all... And you know, we at some point we'll get around and do the podcast. I get so many DMs about this, given that I am in the energy market and my background and ties to that neck of the world, well, the Scandi-Baltic area. But what's going on there, and I'm not the only one that thinks this, but to me, a lot of it's a massive wag the dog because of the mess in energy, right? So it's very easy to blame Russia for all that. So you got all these other things going on in the background, let alone there's multitude of reasons. So keep that in mind. But on that note, we have OPEC this week, right? So they're going to come out. If you recall, you had President Biden begging to them a few months ago, Madavi, remember?
Yeah.
So he played his hand. I've different, and if anything, it's kind of like playing chess, and you show your part, the guy you're playing against, your hand, right? So Vlad Putin's probably not the one you want to show your hand to. Just a thought. And plus another little, and we'll talk about this in another podcast, but Angelica Merkel's retired, and a lot of this happened after that. She had a very strong way of keeping all that in check with that. What was the other thing was, that's right, today, the Qatar, was it the president? Someone of power or note is in the States, was meeting with President Biden today. Now, yes, Qatar is the second biggest LNG exporter in the world after Australia, and America's getting up there quick. But to do that, you got to have... So at least the press statements were saying, he's there to help the natural gas in Europe. But, well, if it's LNG, you got to be able to transform it, as you know, at the end point. And there isn't that, right? So what's your second way is pipelines, right? So there isn't that. So, but the public doesn't want to hear. So that's where, unless the guy has absolutely no idea, and his advisors don't have any idea, I just can't help think that this is all a wag the dog, or kind of window dressing, the theme of the day, right? To blame someone else, and of course against all those policies that weren't exactly thought out with the whole shift away from fossil fuels, So that's my thoughts on that. Whether it's worth anything is another thing, right? And you've also got the Iranian talks. That was the other thing. So something has to happen there. So just think, you've threatening sanctions on one hand with Russia. You've got sanctions against Iran. What was the other thing? So you got that anyway. You've got the world freezing. You've told no one to produce oil or gas. Can't have coal. What do you think's going to... It's almost like you couldn't get a worse scenario to push prices up, right? Am I wrong? But so... it's just... Maybe I'm around oil and gas too much. It's too black.
Iran's selling all his oil pretty good.
No, I'm talking about the oil. I'm talking about the gas.
The
Right?
gas too.
Well, yeah. Well, so that's a whole different thing. So they're selling their gas and oil to China, but that's a different thing. So all these countries have gas, but gas has to be able to go to the end destination, right? So that's the problem that they're missing. And plus a lot of it's already sold, as you said, right? Iran's already sold it to China. Australia's already sold it to...
Well, Iran can increase capacity.
Well, no, they can't. They're all full right now. Oil's a little bit different. But on gas, most of these people are full.
Because since they got sanctioned and so the capacity went down. If you look from 2 or 3
On
years
gas or oil?
on both.
Yeah, no, but I think you're missing the point. What I mean is they can all increase it, but right now is when people need it. It's quite a process to do it, and then to get it there, you either have a pipeline, or you send it on LNG, and it's not there. So that's why they flare gas off, right? It's different to store it.
Right?
Sorry?
It's got to freeze for a little bit.
Well, they're doing that, mate. They're doing that. So on that note, unless there's anything else, so good month for trading, very volatile. Hope everyone's getting something out of what we're doing or trying to explain what we do. We have lots of big earnings. We do that weekly report. Do yourself a favor. Go through everything there. There's a lot of good contributors. Our oil and gas, a lot of good contributors there. This is a time where it probably pays to understand what's going on there. Be careful, punters and dribblers. You're going to get everyone pushing that the bottom's in, or we're just starting. Stick to your charts, watch your order flow, and keep an eye on news. As Madavi said, that's very significant what happened with the secondary. That could happen at any time, particularly stocks that don't make money. We just mentioned the IPOs for a reason, so they're not going to raise money, right? Very difficult to raise money. So keep all that in mind if you're a punter, right?
Remember, I think it was last month we said it. Window dressing at the end of the month, end of the year.
Yeah.
Mate reminded us again today that today was window dressing most likely.
We're getting so cynical, aren't we?
So tomorrow we could head back to where the good times back.
Well. So what I looked at it quickly while I was checking on that Iran stuff and that the first day of January was up hard, and the next day, the second day, it was all over, right? And it was basically the same thing, right? And so if you remember, then they made a whole talk about the Federal Reserve with their minutes. Well, that actually came out the day before. 2 weeks before. So just keep in mind that most of these people, they're just always looking for an excuse to justify it. Don't be that guy. Know your system. Know what you're doing. And if you don't, it's okay not to have a position, right? So, but how bloody good is that? 4,500 on cash. That's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive how they can do it, right? So that it's pretty easy to get people that are just doing FOMO to follow you, right? So the fear of missing out. So on that note, thank you from us. If you like it, make sure you smash the like button. If you haven't subscribe. We'll get some more content. We've been really busy. We also enjoy our sports. We've had some pretty unbelievable NFL games. So that's Super Bowl's in 2 weeks. If you're not from the US, that's like the biggest sporting event in the US. We had Ash Barty become the greatest tennis player potentially. What else we had sports-wise? A few. That's it, really. That's all you need, right? Baseball started your spring season, spring training, whatever. So anyway, that's been keeping us busy. So we will get more. There should be more more content from us to come out. So that's what I was trying to get to. So have a great evening, have a great week, have a great February, and we will see you all later. See you at the roundabout.